Oh no, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Wow, such a big theater. Thanks for staying. It's my third time in Hong Kong, and I'm having a great time. So thank you, the festival, for having me, but especially every one of you, the audience who's here.
I'll start off with a few questions before opening to the audience. So, but if you guys already have any questions, do raise your hand. I would like to start off with relatively simple questions. Is a film that very different from what we usually see as a Japanese film? And you touches on several topics that we don't usually see, like the governance and the mixed culture thing, and the dystopian, of course. Why do you have such an idea of making your debut in such topic? And also, do you have any references or influence or any personal experience that inspires you to make such a film?
I feel like that was a lot of questions. Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the inspiration behind the film, and I think that would answer a lot of the questions. But, just very quickly, it always becomes really long, so just feel free to stop me. But I always like to say that there were 3 earthquakes that inspired the film. One was 3/11 in Fukushima. So in 2011, March 11th, a big earthquake struck the Tohoku region of Japan, which created a nuclear meltdown. And then that kick-started a anti-nuclear protest movement in Japan, which grew to something that became larger than anything we've seen in modern history, or recent history in Japan. At the time, I was a university student, and until then, I wasn't really a political person, but I think this event really influenced me to, and opened my eyes to see the world in a different way, to think more critically about how our world and societies are structured. The second earthquake was one that happened in 1923, in September 1st. This was called the Great Kanto earthquake that struck Tokyo. It was also a really devastating one. A lot of people passed away. But something that is often forgotten as the victims of this earthquake 101 years ago was actually the massacre that happened right after the earthquake. So really awful and racist rumors about how Koreans were poisoning the wells and were stealing things and setting fire to people's houses spread because of racism. At the time, Japan had been occupying and colonizing the Korean peninsula, and so there were a lot of Korean laborers in Japan. And I think there was a lot of fear among the government, but also the media and just general people towards Korean people. And that the earthquake resulted in groups of Japanese civilians killing Korean people, which resulted in over 6,000 people being murdered. And this is a colonial history, one that doesn't really get talked about too much, especially because the current government in Japan is trying to cover it up and erase this history, which I cannot forgive. The third earthquake is actually one that hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen in the near future. But whenever you're in Japan, they always tell you that there's going to be another earthquake very soon. Something that's as similar, as big as Fukushima or 1923. And so, it really led me to think about all the racism and xenophobia that still exists today in Japan, and how we haven't really reflected on this history. And without having reflected on this history, what would happen if another earthquake comes? If we still have racism that's unchecked among the civilians and also the government, what will happen if another big one comes? We have to really think about that. And that's one of the main things that really kind of drove me to write the story. And then also combining that with the emotional memory that I had growing up in high school with my close friends, and transitioning into university, growing up with friends, but then becoming really politically conscious, and having this moments of your friendship where, due to political differences, we kind of had to push each other away. So it was a combination of those personal memories and also my thought and analysis behind the history of Japan.
And the music also take a very important role in the film, and it also include quite a lot of different type of music. Can you explain it, the choices? Like at the beginning and the end, it is more like a grand and imperial kind of piano music, and in the middle it's more techno and stuff. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, sure. There are, there's largely two types of music in the film. One is the music that the characters they themselves listen to, which is techno. And the reason why it's techno is very simple. It's just that I love techno. I love the low subwoofer, the kind of bass and the drums, and I think the vibrations that you feel from this really kind of big speakers in the club is something that really comforts me. And so that's something that really seemed like it influenced me a lot. And the other side, of course, is the classical or the film score that you hear that's kind of outside of the world of the film. And we have an incredible composer, Leah Ouyang-Rusli, who composed the music. And they have like a techno kind of ambient electronic side, but then they're also very much trained classically and composes film music. And actually, they're really influenced by Joe Hisaishi. And so I think you can kind of hear little traces of that. But for the beginning and the end, the main idea behind the music was to compose something that feels like a moment in history has come to an end. And so that is something that is a societal history, but also a history of their friendship. And so I really wanted to feel grand. Yeah.
會唔會有觀眾已經有問題？中間有個，中間先，跟住之後到你。咁佢先，跟住之後到你。
Thank you for bringing this wonderful film to us, and I really loved it so much, especially the ending scene where it suddenly make a cut, and then the very grand music started to struck everyone, and I felt so overwhelmed by the entire cinematography. I'm just wondering, what's your interpretation of that scene? It's like you said, it's kind of an end of their friendship, but then I felt like there's so many layers hidden in the scene, so I'm wondering what's your interpretation of it.
You mean the last shot?
Yeah, exactly. Thank
you. This was actually a question yesterday too, but one of my goals was really to make the ending feel like ambiguous, I didn't want it to feel like their friendship was over forever. I also didn't want it to feel like it hasn't changed at all, because of course so much has changed. There's so much that happened between them that they couldn't really even say everything, so there was nothing to speak about because too much has changed. And really the only thing that I think Yuta could do to communicate that maybe there will still be a future between them is the nipple twist. And so, but we actually had a really hard time to figure out how to end the film. At first there was actually another scene after that whole scene that we cut out. And at first there was no freeze frame. And our goal in making the film was to try to first make people laugh and then make people cry. And when we were trying to figure out how to do that, our editor and producer, Albert Tolan, as a joke, complete joke, he did the freeze frame and then put the most over-exaggerated music over this. And at first he played this and he told me it was a joke and everything, and we watched it, and then I started laughing because I thought it was too ridiculous. But then the more that the music played and the more that the kind of image of how Yuta was crossing this boundary to basically tell Ko that, despite everything is going to be okay, I kind of started to cry. Because maybe that one gesture was enough to, make it known to each other that they could still be friends in the future. And that really kind of made it for me. And so that's why we ended up keeping it, even though it started as a joke.
Hi, and thank you. I really love this film. My question is regarding to the topic for music. I remember in the movie, one of the protagonists says, there's nothing new in contemporary, like new music, so I try to discover those like classic music gems instead. And another character comments that it's sad, it's maybe too pessimistic. I'm wondering if this is also your comment on the music development nowadays, or what do you feel about this topic? Thank you.
Okay, so let me tell you, so there's a little bit of a backstory to this, actually. And it doesn't really make its way into the film too much, but actually I thought about it real hard, which is, in the future I was thinking, you know how in Spotify or like these music services, you can just choose a mood? It's like chill, or like sleep, or something like this. And it just gives you whatever the computer thinks is like the good chill music or whatever. I really hate that, you know, and that's not really how I listen to music. But I was imagining a future world where maybe AI develops further and it can automatically detect like your mood. It's like you want chill, and it delivers chill music to you. And I was thinking maybe in this future dystopian horrible world, that's how people listen to music now. And fewer and fewer people kind of like DJ and like dig and find out artists and fall in love with artists. And so, you know, Yuta and Ko, when they're kind of wanting to be a DJ, it's like a world where they're rebelling against the mainstream, and they're like actively searching for like good music that exists in the past and the present. But I think ultimately, and so that's kind of why, like, when the music store owner is like, oh, you want to be a DJ? That's rare these days. That's why, that's what she's responding to. I don't think it's rare today. Everyone wants to be a DJ. But I think ultimately the reason why I wrote that dialogue is actually because I think it really represents Yuta's ideology and perspective in the world. I think he, in a way, has given up on anything new to come. I think he's given up on the possibility that something new can be developed out of the ruins of the world. I think in order for Ko to become hopeful and to be as active as he becomes in the film, he needs to have a hope that something new is still available and exists in the future. And so, to me, through music, I think Yuta kind of like embodied that ideology in a way, a little bit of a nihilism, giving up on the state of the world. But I think the music store owner and also interacting with Ko hopefully makes them grow a little bit and realizes that that's not necessarily the case and something new is still possible.
My English is not so good, so I want to ask, I can see two sides in the film. One side I can see that it seems there are friendship and some people go and some people they take apart each other for different reasons. But in the other side, on that side, we can see that like in the music store, when he plays the sad music, the staff say, oh, don't play that, play something happy. So I want to know that through this film, what do you want to convey to our people, especially for these young people, and what do you think they should, how should they face the future like this in this film? Thank you.
That's a big question. To be honest, I don't necessarily have like a message. I'm not trying to promote a worldview or an ideology in the film necessarily. I think, what I'm trying to do in the film is actually just capture an emotion that I felt when I grew up, or when I was younger, in my early 20s. I was really feeling this kind of, I mean, I think it's kind of true in all of us maybe, but I feel like we all swing to nihilism sometimes, or giving up. But then there's always like a side where you want to kind of fight for what's good in life and, you know, the future and all these things. At least for me, that's the case. And I'm always swinging between these two sides. But I think sometimes it can be really frustrating when you can't communicate that to your friends, and sometimes the people that you trusted the most in your friends don't necessarily feel the kind of anger or frustration that you feel towards the world. And personally, like, I don't know if I had the language in order to communicate that to my friends, and instead of trying, I would like push them away. Or vice versa as well. Like, I think I've had a lot of experiences where I was actually pushed away by some of my closest friends. And to me, because friendship was such an important part of my upbringing and my fundamental kind of like the reason why I existed, to lose those kinds of really important friends was as catastrophic as an earthquake. And that is the emotion that I was trying to capture. And so I don't really have like a message to young people or a message that I want everybody to take away. I just want people to feel maybe whatever they want to feel, to be honest, from the film. But actually, there's one thing that I had in mind while writing the script, which was I hope that the film would make people feel like they want to call an old friend that they haven't spoken to in a long time. You know, you can interpret that however you want, but that's the kind of thing that I was thinking about the most. I don't really have an ideology that I want people to believe in necessarily, but I think people should rebel more.
Hello, director. Thanks for the great movie. It's very inspiring. But I got one question. I'm quite curious about how do the crew place the yellow car horizontally, and where is this idea comes from? It's kind of mind blowing. I've never seen this before.
I'll only tell you the second part of your question, which is how this idea came to be. So I had a friend who, back in the day, I had hair, and he used to cut my hair. And he's from Japan, and he was from this very, his kind of junior high school was a really rough junior high school. And when he was in second grade, there was like these two legendary kind of juvenile delinquent third graders above him that he looked up to, who were just like the coolest badass, like, you know, 15-year-old or something like this. And apparently one day he went to school and discovered that his teacher's cars were all flipped on its head, or flipped to the side. And so then when he was cutting my hair, I was thinking this, and I was like, wow, like how would they do that? You know, that's crazy, it's impossible. And you know, I had it in my mind, like after he told me the story, that, you know, his junior high had like a car like this, you know? And later on, as I was starting to write the script and I wanted more detail from him, I went back to him and I was like, hey man, like, so what was it like, you know, how was the car standing, like, please give me some more detail. And he was like, oh, it was actually standing like this. And I was like, shit. But this one is more iconic. And I couldn't get this image out of my head anymore. It's like a monolith, you know, and so I wrote it that way. And I will read the first part to you.
唔好意思啊，我哋時間已經夠啦，so sorry for we're running out of time. So that's the end Q&A.
Thank you.